and welcome to this Real Estate Live event, Invest Waltham Forest. We've got a load of really great speakers for you today, so I won't take very long out of your hour. But just very quickly, I'm just going to say a few things. Real Estate Live is a week of free events put together by White Label to deliver a way for the economic development, regeneration and inward investment community to keep talking and keep the discussion and the debate going during these slightly strange times. We're running a whole week of events. You can see a lot more at the website. I hope you will. Just as a starter to get you engaged with what's going on, we're going to run a quick poll. And that poll is a question that we're asking in every session this week. As you can see, what is the most important factor in unlocking development, ensuring the continued strength of UK real estate? So make your choice, and we'll see them pop up, and then we'll collect the information. What we'll do is add that together with all of the other polls as we go along, and we'll get a result for the week. Right, okay. One last thing to say, if you want to ask any questions of the speakers, there is a Q&A button at the bottom. Please use that. And if you click on it, you'll see that a box will open up and you can type a question in. And then the chair, who I'm about to introduce you to, will be able to ask your questions. So without any more chat, you've heard enough from me. I'll be handing you on to your chair for today, who is Chris Paddock. Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ross. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Chris Paddock. I am a director of a company called PRD. We're a place-focused consultancy focusing on economy and development. It's a real pleasure for me to be chairing the session today because I've got quite a lot of involvement with Waltham Forest. I've probably been working on and off in the borough for about 15 years on a number of different research assignments, which has given me an interesting perspective on the borough, and I've actually been living here for the last 7 years. So I'm very interested to hear what our speakers have got to say today from the point of view of a local resident. One thing I would say, one quick reflection from me, having lived in the borough for a while now, is it's a place that is incredibly diverse and does a lot of different things. It's been very interesting to see how the borough's evolved in recent years from being a sort of archetypal outer London borough to becoming something that's a lot more interesting, a lot more nuanced. And it's because it's such a nuanced borough that we've got so many different speakers today. So we've got a number of different people who are going to talk about their work, are going to talk about why Waltham Forest is a great place to work, a great place to invest. And then we're going to have a little bit of insight from some research from Trisha Patel and Pollard Thomas Edwards, and then we'll have some questions and answers. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Councillor Simon Miller, who's going to give us an overview from the point of view of the borough as a whole. So Simon, if you'd like to take the floor.
Chris, thank you very much indeed for that. I think, like most politicians, I'm going to have to start off with an apology, and my apology is for not being on brand. I got told I had to have a green background, painted the walls green, that was in order for the Real Estate Live event background to appear, painted the walls green, great haste over the weekend, but apparently that interferes with a green screen. So apologies for me for having my front room behind me, as opposed to appropriate branding. I want to start off by saying that I think everyone on this panel thinks that Waltham Forest is a special place, a place that has changed dramatically and is changing dramatically and will continue to change. Waltham Forest is a special place because we have, I think, an ability to make big and bold decisions that will radically transform and improve the lives of our residents. These are big and bold decisions that led to us as a London Borough becoming London's first Borough of Culture, and big and bold decisions that meant that we were voted Local Authority of the Year by the Municipal Journal just last year. But our ability to make big and bold decisions also applies to most other areas of policy making. It applies to our response to COVID, which has been probably the best in London, and I'm very proud to be able to say that. But it also applies to the approach that we take to development. So I want all of you to leave today's session with one very, very clear message, and that is that Waltham Forest is the most pro-development borough in London, is proud to be that, and we want to generate as much interest as we can in our borough to be able to deliver for our residents. And when I say that we are the most pro-development borough in London, that's about two things. Firstly, it's about the scale of the development that we want to see. So transformational development to change our historic city townscapes, to change our historic town centres, and to provide new infrastructure and opportunity for our people. And that's particularly important as we respond to COVID and we seek to meet the economic challenges of the COVID crisis. I also think we're the most pro-development borough because of the approach that we take, the way in which we partner with investors and with developers, in which we seek to bring forward new development to the benefit of our people. We will work with you more proactively, more effectively, and in a more straightforward, open, frank and honest manner than any other borough. And I'm proud of the work that has been done by the team to be able to achieve that. That means that we can bring forward development more effectively, more efficiently, and ultimately with better outcomes for our people than elsewhere. And this is something that we are desperately proud of and want to continue to build on. So to put all of that into some form of scale and context, we are about to start the final phase of consultation on our local plan. That local plan will set out an ambition to build 27,000 new homes over the next 15 years. That means a radical transformation of multiple parts of our borough, including in our 8 town centres, each of which has its own unique identity, but many of which need to have historic underinvestment made good so that the services, the opportunities that our people want can be delivered through them in those areas where green living can be encouraged and people can live sustainably, greenly and cleanly most effectively. It's also about our major growth areas too, so not just the town centre areas, but those growth areas where change will be even more radical. So in Leighton, in Black Horse Road, along the Lee Valley, Lee Bridge corridor as well. What we want to achieve over the next 3 months, 6 months, and several years to come. But we also publish our capital investment strategy, which sets out our commitment as a council to invest £600 million over the next few years in our infrastructure. That is our money going into our infrastructure for our people, but specifically also to enable the highest quality of development to come forward and to come forward with confidence. Because whilst we recognise that the vision that we've set out, the numbers that we've set out, the scale of building that we've set out is a journey that is tremendously exciting. It's a journey that we can't go on alone and will only be able to effectively deliver on if our investment partners come with us, know that they can invest in our borough with confidence and do so at the soonest opportunity. Chris, I think that's my 5 minutes, so I'm going to stop there.
It is your 5 minutes, that's absolutely bang on. So thank you, Councillor Miller. Now, to elaborate on that, I'm going to invite Stuart Murray to say a few words, if you could, Stuart.
Hello, I'm actually come on Ian Ray's video because mine seems to have a technical audio problem for the first time in 6 months. So, Stuart Murray, I'm the Strategic Director of Economic Growth and Housing Delivery. Report to Councillor Simon Miller, and we work very closely together as well as the Cabinet and Waltham Forest senior management team to drive forward growth, investment and positive transformation of the borough to meet the challenges. Yes, there are very significant challenges ahead, but we're a borough, as Simon said, that means business and intent on making sure we do the best for our residents, our businesses and our local economy, particularly for our investment in infrastructure and development. So as you heard from Simon, we've got a very ambitious programme and a number of key strategies are being launched as we speak. Just a bit of context now, where we've come from since the Olympics. We've gone through significant changes. We've really upped our game as a borough in Outer London, which maybe COVID presents an advantage maybe to exploit in terms of outer rather than central at the moment, although we're very much dependent on the central London economy. We're trying to grow our own local economy. So we have a growing population. As you can see, the population's approaching 300,000. We've got a lot of homes to build. And as Simon said, we launched our economic recovery plan in June as we're coming out of lockdown, alongside our High Streets Action Plan and our house building revival plan. And also we built into that our cultural recovery plans. We brought culture functions into economic growth to drive cultural investment. We delivered over the COVID period and the lockdown period nearly £50 million of business grants to support our local economy. We've now really started to ramp up the reopening of the high streets since June, and we are going through a 3-stage process of reopen, repurpose and reimagine those high streets so they can offer what you might call the 15-minute city principles, what some may sort of call the 20-minute neighbourhood. So everything on your doorstep, because increasingly, as Simon indicated, we are dealing with COVID, a very increased number of people working in the borough from home who want facilities and amenities and everything on their doorstep, and their local high street is so important. Big investment by the council. You heard Simon say nearly £600 million. We've got details of where that is, particularly housing, community infrastructure, hard infrastructure, and the council's own corporate development programme. We're taking leadership here by catalysing the investment in the borough. We've currently got a number of very major development projects on site through the pandemic, through the lockdown, safely delivering, but creating many local jobs and jobs for Londoners as well. Particularly our Fellowship Square Town Hall campus redevelopment project, with partnering with ISG contractors and with Countryside Properties for new homes and jobs on our Town Hall campus. And we've now moved into work on our cultural investment project, our flagship cultural programme at EMD, which is the former Granada Cinema in Walthamstow High Street. And Wilmot Dixon, our contractors there, are racing ahead to have that available as a new cultural venue in 2022. We're building homes at Juniper House, and we're making sure that our house building programme, which you'll hear more from Jennifer Diathon, is up and running. The council's got a really ambitious direct council house building programme through our company 60 Bricks and the estate regeneration with our development partners, and our direct delivery programme. And we're working very closely with the GLA, the Mayor of London, to secure affordable homes and funding for council homes for Londoners and for Waltham Forest residents, as the population ever more has the need for more housing and affordable housing in the city. So those 3 strands of reopening our high streets, boosting our building of new homes, and investing in transport and infrastructure, supported by helping our local businesses and workers, turbocharging our corporate development programme, and investing in the climate emergency and in the green spaces and green economy. We've launched not only our economic recovery plan, but on Thursday, Simon and his cabinet colleagues will consider a new corporate strategy, which is focused on jobs, on reskilling our workforce for those who are displaced, particularly the hospitality industry, and getting people back into work where they are a casualty of COVID, get them back into a productive employment as quickly as possible, and help those, particularly our BAME community and our diverse communities, to ensure that they are contributing to the economic recovery. And we're firing on all fronts on that. So we're going to have a bit more detail now from Ian Ray about those strategies. I'll just pass over to you.
Thanks, Stuart. So we've already heard this morning about the Council's new local plan and growth strategy. So as Councillor Miller set out, it actually has deliverable capacity for 27,000 new homes over the next 15 years. And that's quite significant for 2 reasons. Firstly, it goes above and beyond the Emerging London Plan and tries to narrow the gap between housing need and supply. So this 27,000 figure is responding to our identified housing need. And secondly, it has quite a novel approach to different growth strategies in different parts of the borough, which in many ways have actually come ahead of the government's planning reforms white paper. So the borough itself is split into 3 broad regions, north, central and south. the southern growth zone has the highest capacity for new homes, with over 15,000 capacity over the next 15 years. The central area includes several of our key established growth areas, including Waltham Central, Black Horse Lane and the Forest Road corridor, and that has capacity for 8,000 new homes over the 15-year period. And then in the northern part of the borough, which is essentially the area above the North Circular, A406, and includes places such as Hymes Park and Chingford Mount, there's a further capacity for 4,000 new homes, so a lower capacity but still an important contribution. And in many ways, this mirrors the government's new planning white paper in a very Waltham Forest bespoke way, because for each of those growth areas, we've identified a series of site opportunities and done a lot of master planning work to inform those to ensure they're deliverable. But they've been broken down into three categories. So transformational sites, which include some of our largest growth zones, particularly places such as Black Horse Lane and Lee Bridge in the south of the borough, where there's a real opportunity to completely transform the urban scale and the densities that have been achieved in those areas with mixed-use schemes, including quite significant amounts of new and intensified employment space, recognising that there are increasing number of residents working locally, responding to that 52,500 metres square of new employment floor space that the local plan identifies as being deliverable, but also ensuring that within those increased densities, there's a real opportunity for new neighbourhoods and new locations in the borough that actually feeds into that 20-minute neighbourhood principle that Stuart outlined, so that everyone can have the shops, services and jobs and employment opportunities and cultural facilities that they need to meet their daily lives, but all within a very close proximity within the different neighbourhoods of the borough. So as well as those key transformation areas, we've also identified sites within our transition category, which are still important growth areas, but are often within existing town centres or major routes where there's still an opportunity for a step change in densities, but a need to knit into a larger growth area that's already established. And then our third category is a reinforcement category, which looks at the existing character of the urban area, but looks at how there could be a more relatively modest step change, but still to deliver growth. So they're often good examples of underutilised sites across the borough, be it car parks or underutilised employment areas where there's a real opportunity to deliver 21st century employment space in an intensified way, with consolidation of other uses within those areas. So they're all actually come together to form approximately 70 site allocations in our new site allocations local plan. As I mentioned, each one has its own master planning elements and forms part of our skyline study, looking at potential building story heights and densities and massing on each site location, but also importantly has a delivery plan to actually linking with our high street recovery plans and our economic recovery plans, and also to look at how cultural-led regeneration can play a role in delivering some of these site opportunities. So there's a huge number of sites coming forward in Waltham Forest that have those cultural elements. For example, we have the EMD cinema that Stuart and Councillor Miller mentioned, but also, for example, we have the former Standard Music venue in Black Horse Lane, which again is a good example of a cultural facility coming forward to support wider regeneration aims. So that's a bit of a snapshot of our growth strategy in our local plan, and I think I'm going to hand back over now as we look at housing delivery in a bit more detail.
Yes, so just going to hand over to Jennifer now, who's going to tell us how we're going to build these 27,000 homes.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Dowtong. I'm Commercial Director of Housing Delivery for Waltham Forest. In terms of our housing delivery programme, I think you've heard a couple of the key components that contribute to enabling us to be able to bring forward housing development. One of those being around the strategic piece of work that Ian and his team have been leading on, helping us to identify sites across the borough. There's a piece of work that mirrors that within the council, which is us looking at our own capacity within our own portfolio of land holdings. I'm sure that Joe will touch on that a bit further later. But in terms of our own estate's capacity, we've been looking very closely at where there are opportunities for us to further intensify and or radically reshape some of our estates. And we have track record in bringing forward partnership schemes for estate regeneration, Marlow Road being one of them. It was a site that remobilised very quickly with some close partnership working with Countryside PLC in order to get that back on track after lockdown was announced earlier in the year. The other strand to that, in addition to the estate's capacity review and our regeneration activity, is actually looking at our new build programme. So the council, prior to about a year ago now, had roughly 100 homes in total within its pipeline. That's been massively boosted to over 450 with the creation of our new local housing company, 60 Bricks, who are about to make some exciting announcements about appointments to their board and also other personnel. We have managed to maintain momentum as the council, working in partnership with 60 Bricks for their phase 1 sites. They were very quick to get back on site, as were all of our partners actually, when it came to housing delivery within the borough, and we're back on site within 4 weeks, I think, of lockdown being announced. We're now expecting the first of those new homes to come forward and complete in spring 2021, which, if you think about the scale of disruption that has taken place across all activities recently, is no mean feat. In addition to that, and Stuart alluded to this in terms of the economic recovery plan, we have been looking at what the next wave of housing delivery will look like. You'll see from the slide in front of you that we have ambitions to be even more numerous in terms of the number of homes that we bring forward at 600 as part of phase 2. And we're just working through the feasibility and the viability assessments associated with those sites. We will of course be engaging with our residents as we bring those sites forward over the next few years. Stuart mentioned that one of the key components to our success has been around partnership, and there are a couple of examples of partnerships that you'll see on the slide in front of you. We're fortunate enough that our leader sits on the Homes for Londoners board at the GLA, so actually is very good at helping us to influence policy where we can, and also feeding back the latest thinking in terms of London-wide mayoral policy on housing matters. We have a very active and interested community-led housing movement within the borough, and we're in constant dialogue with those groups, with some pilot sites that will be going live in October as a marketing opportunity for those sorts of groups. Having actually approved our community-led housing policy earlier in the year during lockdown via a virtual cabinet in April of 2020. I mentioned before that we are looking at opportunities around regeneration. Avenue Road Estate actually is one of the live opportunities that we have currently at the moment. We've just finished a soft market testing exercise. That is a regeneration scheme that has been approved by Cabinet earlier this year. It is still subject to resident ballot, which will take place in early 2021 actually, and we think there's capacity there for circa 550 homes. We've had a really good amount of interest from the market in Avenue Road. If you have a look at some of the details around its positioning in the south of the borough, so right next to the Olympic Park, fantastic transport access, you'll begin to understand why, and I'm happy to talk to anyone who may want to find out more about that opportunity, either in the Q&A or after this event. I think I'm now handing over to one of my colleagues. Thank you.
Yeah, so handing over to Lorna Lee now with thanks, because as a local resident, I thought that Borough of Culture was absolutely amazing. So I'm interested to hear what happens next in the context that you're working in, Lorna.
Fabulous, thanks. So, culture is part of Waltham Forest USP and has really been a part of its creative heritage for decades and centuries. And as you will have heard, last year Waltham Forest was London's very first London Borough of Culture, and we had a fantastic year. And now we're building on that for a future vibrant borough. However, almost practically as soon as Borough of Culture was delivered, COVID hit. But culture really became a key part of the borough's response. We initially launched our virtual culture offer, which was supporting residents in isolation and families, and also to really try and support our creative sector, which, as I'm sure you all understand, continues to be severely impacted by the ongoing impacts of COVID. We utilised our networks developed through Borough of Culture to mobilise really quickly and effectively. And we're also fortunate to be a borough with significant green assets, and that's not just Councillor Miller's front room, but we have got Walthamstow Wetlands, which is a 220 hectare, a beautiful outdoor space with reservoirs, and that is very close to one of our key growth zones in Black Horse Road. And during the first 3 months of lockdown, we welcomed an incredible 300,000 visits there. And I think it just demonstrates, you know, the importance of those green assets right across the borough as a great place to live. And we also experimented as well with things such as our unique socially distanced outdoor cycling cinema, again reflecting the outdoor life and the fantastic cycle networks in the borough. However, the great thing about being part of Waltham Forest Economic Growth Team is that everybody's talking about culture. So you will have heard already about some of our really exciting investment plans. And it's really, I think, the council now has that tangible belief that culture can deliver real outcomes for the borough, so that this investment has continued despite the challenging times. Culture is a really strong thread throughout the local plan. You'll have heard about some of our infrastructure projects. A particular key one for me is the cultural infrastructure project that is the EMD in Walthamstow. And now we're working with our development partner, Soho Theatre, to really make sure that that brings the maximum social and economic value to the high street and local businesses as well. And that's due to open in spring 2022. And so really moving on to growth, you'll have heard that my colleagues are optimistic and that we will return to a position of growth, and that culture will be a key part of that recovery. And really will be an even more vibrant borough. The EMD will be a key part of developing our thriving nighttime offer. And by the continuing investment we have in our creative sector, we believe that that will really be able to bounce back and help be part of getting people back into jobs and employment. And I think really one of our strengths in Waltham Forest is that we have got fantastic connected communities, and that just means as a place to live and invest. I think that is really part of its USP as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Lorna. Next up is Joe Garrett, who is in charge of corporate property and capital investment. Joe, if you would.
Oh, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us. In terms of our capital delivery programme, the 580 million falls into three main tranches. So firstly, we've got those really big flagship schemes that we're delivering in partnership with developers, where they're massively matching and over-delivering on the capital we're putting in. So the jewel in the crown is the Fellowship Square scheme on the Town Hall campus, where we'll be delivering over 500 homes with our development partner Countryside on the Town Hall sites, and a vacant office block further up Forest Road. We've had some major firsts for the Town Hall campus during lockdown. So we started the refurbishment at the Town Hall itself with ISG. We concluded Countryside's appointment, and now that scheme's really moving into delivery. Moving on to Coronation Square, again, another big milestone in lockdown, where as only our second virtual planning committee, in partnership with Taylor Wimpey, we took through an application unanimously approved for 750 new homes, a new health hub, a new leisure centre, a fantastic open public space. And then moving finally to Lea Bridge Station, there we we're successful in appointing London Squared, where we'll be delivering 300 new homes and also a new station entrance at Lea Bridge Station, working with Network Rail and Greater Angular. And the application for the station entrance was submitted a couple of weeks ago. So they're the schemes we're taking forward in very closely in partnership with the private sector as a co-investor. Moving on, we then got our flagship self-delivery schemes, where we're either deploying capital directly as the council or working through our housing company 60 Bricks. So kicking that off, Juniper House, people who are familiar with the borough may know the site, another former council office block directly opposite Walthamstow Station. There we're on site with Hill as contractor and delivering 91 homes with 50% affordable, and really excitingly some new council homes using Building Council Homes for Londoners grant from the Greater London Authority. We then got the Families Hub, which is being delivered on the junction of Forest Road and Wood Street, where we'll be delivering a new customer contact centre on the ground floor and 60 new homes. And finally, the Chingford Hub, where we're looking at options to re-provide the library and assembly hall in the Chingford Green Conservation Area, funded by the delivery of 40 new homes. Then, as well as these sort of big flagship projects, we've also got a number of work programs to support growth and ensure that new and existing residents have fantastic social infrastructure. So the last couple of years has seen significant investment in key libraries through the Libraries Programme. We have a very large £100 million plus investment programme in additional school places, where we've managed through school expansion significant growth in the primary estate, and are now moving on to investment in our secondary schools, and also in providing alternative provision facilities for our most vulnerable students. And then there are the smaller but real value added projects like the Leighton Cricket Hub. And I think a theme of presentation so far has been about our ability to deliver at pace. And this was a really good example of where we work with a partner to realise a scheme very quickly. So in the run-up to the Cricket World Cup last year, we were approached by the ECB, who wanted to make its first investment in a series of urban cricket hubs targeting the Asian community and women cricketers. We were approached by them just before Christmas, got cabinet approval to proceed with the scheme in January, and opened a fantastic world-class indoor cricket training facility in a former school sports block, delivered in a record 6 months. And we're now moving on to the next stage of the investment plan for that broader site. And you'll see on the slide there's a wonderful listed cricket pavilion, and we're working with partners to look at investment opportunities to really bring that facility back into use and to complete the master plan for the site. Thank you very much.
Okay, and then last but not least, in terms of council officers to take us home, is Jonathan Martin, who's going to talk to us about inward investment opportunities. Jonathan, a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jonathan Martin, Director of Inward Investment at Waltham Forest. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank you all for spending time with us, just talking about the growth of the borough. And I'd like to take you through the slides, which are here for us to discuss after this in the Q&A. Just having some difficulties just moving this forward. Hopefully you can now see the slides. Firstly, inward investment. We have a dedicated inward investment service, which is through the Invest Waltham Forest programme. The aim is, as you can see on the screen, to promote the borough, really maintain confidence with the market, and look to secure private and public sector investment. That's really key for us, particularly in this troubled time, and really putting us out there as a local authority that, as you've heard from Councillor Miller and colleagues, looks to embrace growth through putting ourselves in a position to assist through interventions. Our objectives in reaching this are working with you as the business sector, as also investors. We really want to make sure that we can bring forward schemes together, and that means continual engagement through conversations, virtual discussions, and how we can move forward in terms of any schemes you may have on the cards in terms of bringing them forward, or indeed schemes that are already planned and within the discussion process with the council. And again, we're here to work with you to deal with any particular aspects, as you've seen from the huge amount of investment and focus that's gone forward. In terms of that positive engagement, there's been a lot of practical support that you've heard from colleagues around grants that have been able to be deployed. We've looked at how we can better implement changes to really mitigate the impact of COVID. And again, that's to instill business confidence that we're a borough that you can do business with, and we act as a credible fundee. That's been really important for us, particularly as how we've looked at bringing forward schemes such as Whipps Cross, where we've been working with one public estate and received the largest deployment and allocation of funding to support that big scheme coming forward. In terms of inward investment briefings, that's clearly what this is all about, and how we can bring forward discussions on where we're going, signposting opportunities. You've heard from Ian already in terms of what we're looking at, particularly around the change to the site allocations, and where we see circa 70 potential opportunities, which I'll touch on as an overview after this quick overview on the briefing and implementation of inward investment. In terms of development updates, we've been keeping periodic investment updates to the market. And again, that's shone a light on where we see opportunities, how we've been intervening with the market, where we potentially see we can influence and help development and investors come forward with potentially new schemes, and bringing in not just our existing investors, which have proved to be so resilient in this market, but also new high quality investors to complement those that are already in the borough. Our capital investment strategy you've heard from Joe just before me. So again, there's a huge amount of opportunity to bring forward the development we've discussed previously. Market intelligence is also key for us, just around understanding what's going on with our investors. We're regularly having dialogue with our active investors within the borough, but also looking at those looking to join the borough as well, particularly to understand the sensitive points that can influence their decisions around business planning, but also making sure we can provide opportunities where we can for joint venture opportunities and other windfall opportunities coming forward. In terms of the real estate networks, clearly this is one of them. It's a recent new event on the calendar. Been very successful for us in terms of working closer with these partnerships. We really support what we can see through Real Estate Live. It's getting a far reach out to the market, and we want to make sure we follow up on those discussions with you as you come forward with potential opportunities. And if you want clarification, again, we've got a dedicated team that will speak to you on any of the growth areas that we've discussed, which I'll go on to discuss in a moment. But clearly for us, the most important thing is to make sure we keep these conversations alive and keep these conversations going. As we've gone through the lockdown period, the first lockdown, we've obviously had to pivot towards complete virtual platforms, but we'll be looking to get back into a kind of a hybrid blended approach where we can have far more face-to-face meetings as and when required, as well as supporting them through that virtual meet and greet event that we've been promoting as well. We're going into our new season now as that autumn and winter season approaches, and what we really want to do is make the message clear to you that we're keen to engage with high caliber investors and developers. We really want to talk about specifically the growth and areas that we've identified as strategic sites. So I'm going to just quickly take us through that in terms of an overview, and then we can move towards our questions and answers. As touched on by Ian previously, what we're looking to do is really identify our upcoming opportunities. And this is something we've mentioned in our previous attendance at Real Estate Live, and that looks at how we start to identify opportunities around the borough. Now, before I go on, what I will say is that you don't need to try and read all of this smaller print. We will be making links live for you to see this presentation after this event, and we'll make sure it's also copied into the video that accompanies this presentation today as well. So we'll be able to share this with you separately upon request, but also on the website, so that you can see the areas we're discussing. This is now forming part of our strategic sites allocation document, which talks about the areas around the borough. This particular slide is looking at the north of the borough, which again hasn't seen as much investment as perhaps the central and south areas have, but as an area of growth and as a borough that really is embracing the change to get to those 27,000 new homes and thousands of new jobs, I might add, we need to really work on a comprehensive pan-borough approach. What you find in the north of the borough is it's a bit more suburban, a bit more leafy in terms of its closeness to things such as Waltham Forest, but we have identified places around North Chingford, Hyams Park, Chingford Mount, where we can see potential for intensification, how we can bring forward a number of sites that could potentially lead to a number of new homes, high quality homes in these locations, but also look at jobs on a number of these sites that are potentially borough employment areas as well. So there's a big feature for us around making sure we protect and enhance our jobs pipeline as something we can deliver not just locally for the borough, but also as part of this part of London as its offer for this part of North East London. So that's really important for us, particularly to the north of the A406, where again, there's not been as much investment as we had previously seen, and we're now focusing on that as a potential new area to really start to ratchet up investment. In terms of the opportunities in central Waltham Forest, you'll all be aware of areas such as Black Horse Lane, which is our housing zone. We've had great progress there with a number of high quality developers and investors bringing forward over 4,000 new homes now. It was originally meant to be 2,500 new homes, and we're already over 4,000 new homes, over 1,500 new jobs coming forward. Importantly for us, it also acts as the epicenter of our creative enterprise zone. So we're still expecting more change there. There's cheap by jowl development that's coming forward, particularly around employment next door to residential development. And we're looking at how we can support workspace with the fact that the council also has its own workspace provision in that particular part of the borough. Again, happy to take people through a virtual tour of that should they want to avail themselves of that offer. But we're really seeing a step change in what's come forward, particularly in the quality and the density around the developments happening at Black Horse Lane. Forest Road Corridor, you've seen discussed already in terms of the Town Hall campus with Fellowship Square. That's seeing a real step change again in terms of the ambition that we're looking to bring forward along Forest Road Corridor. It picks up a number of large sites. It's looking at how, again, we can integrate these sites sympathetically within the existing residential setting, but also make sure that we've got that pipeline of employment and job creation that's the epicenter of what we want to see. It's the DNA that's going to run through a number of the areas that I touched with you in terms of how we can bring those forward. Wood Street, Walthamstow Town Centre, very close in terms of proximity. Both have transport links in terms of Wood Street Overground Station and also Walthamstow Town Centre in terms of rail, road and underground, as well as bus. So we're really quite keen to see these areas really start to step up to both meet the impact of COVID, which has obviously had a significant impact on a number of town centres. We believe we're well placed in terms of meeting that challenge, but looking at how we can flexibly adapt that and look at how we can bring forward flexible solutions that allow for this change in our live-work balance and, in fact, how we apply ourselves to the work agenda generally. And we'll hear more from that perspective with Tricia when she comes on to give some of her thoughts around that sort of walkable city and what we're seeing in terms of design challenges. For us, though, we're really keen to make sure that we really start to underscore the opportunities in Walthamstow and also in Wood Street, particularly as these are growth areas that are seeing a lot of interventions and investment by the council, but also by the private sector. Now, in terms of the opportunities in the south of the borough, we've seen a lot of discussion around what's happening in areas such as Lea Bridge and certainly in terms of Leighton. We're putting a lot of investment as the local authority into the public sector's element relating to public transport. We're looking at how we can improve social infrastructure around generating medical spaces through GP places. We're looking at how we can also improve the green spaces in these locations. And all those headings I've given you have seen significant investment by the council to support and complement the private sector investment that's coming forward. So I've touched on two areas in terms of Lea Bridge and Leighton. We're also looking at South Leytonstone, which is a major focus for us now in terms of priority area. It's the second town centre in the borough that really needs growth and really wants to embrace new investment, particularly around the town centre location. Again, it's got good public transport links, and we're really working hard to make sure that this has a focus around not just master planning, but also delivery plans, as Ian touched on before, and that cultural offer that Lorna's mentioned around making sure this really important town centre for us sees a real sort of conduit of investment and interventions coming from both the council in facilitating that, but the private sector bringing forward development opportunities as well. I've touched on Whipps Cross, which is clearly important for us as a major investment, which we'll hear more about as time rolls on. There are demolitions already taking shape there in terms of part of that site, and there will be the need to go to the market to find a development partner for this state-of-the-art hospital and potentially up to 1,500 new homes as we go through that pre-development phase. Baker's Arms is another area we're really keen to engage with. Again, it's a very urban area. It's something that we see as a strength through its character, and we've identified a number of sites, some of which you can see on this plan in terms of how we can bring that forward. Just touching on Low Hall Depot, we've touched on this before, but that's moving forward. It's a scheme that's going to come up for potential market intervention as a tender. We're looking to deliver circa 450 to 500 homes there, as well as the reprovision of a new depot. And again, this sits within a setting of 18 hectares of land, which are against and beside metropolitan open land, which gives you a really good setting to start to embody a jobs and residential housing setting that we can move forward on. Lea Bridge, we've touched on before in terms of what's happening there with our new rail station integration. And what we're looking to do there is really build on that, working with a number of estates around that location, again, transforming those into new areas. So I think I'll leave it there for now and hand back to Chris so that we can move on to the next section.
Thank you, Jonathan. I told you there was a lot going on. Fantastic. So I see there's a couple of questions already come in. We're going to get onto those in a second. But before we get onto that, I'm going to invite Trisha Patel from Pollard Thomas Edwards to talk about some very interesting research they've been doing. It's integral to Walthamstow. If you would, please, Trisha.
Okay, thank you. Can you see that?
Yes, just there we go. Good stuff.
Okay. Oh. Can you see that? Okay, great. Thank you. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, because actually every single day of lockdown, I have been walking around the marshes in Walthamstow, and it has kept me going emotionally and physically. We hear a lot about people moving out of cities and moving out to get green space. Actually, Walthamstow has the most magical connections to nature. And I think it can be even better than being in the countryside because you don't have to get into a car to get there. These are just some of the walks. You can see there's cows. You can go and see cows. You can see rainbows. You can see horses. And you can see the most incredible amount of insects and birds during the summer, and on every season it's just absolutely fantastic. So thank you, Walthamstow, for that. I have to say, on a personal note, my son's also moved out of a small flat during lockdown and moved into a boat in Walthamstow as well, so you can go and visit him. I even got my bicycle fixed, which is a ridiculous bicycle. It weighs the same as a tank. I'm not a Lycra person, but honestly, Walthamstow is the most fantastic place to cycle around. It is a walkable and cyclable city, and it's got me back on a bicycle and cycling around, something that I thought I was a bit too nervous to do. And of course you can go up to the wetlands, and I think there's some very magical green spaces. It's not just about parks in the city and play, it's about a real connection to nature, and I think Walthamstow is incredibly special because of that. Just thinking then about the home post-COVID, as well as nature, as well as being outside. This is our project Motion, which was developed with Hill. And one of the reasons I went to talk about this is it's right on that, it's right next to the marshes, so it has access to that beautiful green space. But it also has connections to cycle networks. It has connections to local shops. It's the connected city. Really importantly, though, we looked at those homes post-lockdown, have visited them very recently. One of the things that's really important for homes is really generous outdoor space as a balcony. These are dual aspect homes. They're flooded with daylight. We've made the most of roof gardens. You can see the daylight, the sunlight, the connection to nature. So we know these are more important post-COVID. And excuse me and apologies for jumping into Chelmsford here. One of the reasons I'm doing this is because one of my colleagues went out to Chelmsford to visit this project to see how people were coping during lockdown. Here at Chelmsford, there was a real investment in this project in the landscape and the play and maintenance of that. And we found out through talking to residents how incredibly important that was, and it's something really to hold on to in any new development. And on the back of that, it was very ambitious landscape. It was all the dangerous, difficult water, slidey bashy, crashy stuff that you're sometimes not allowed to do. On the back of that, our home visits and garden visits and green spaces visits, we've been carrying out post-occupancy evaluation and really had a huge drive for that. And we're encouraging all our clients to participate in this. And if anybody wants to share what we've been doing, I'm very happy to do so. What we're really learning is what people want from a new home. And all of us need to know that. What's appealing to people and what do they need? I've not going to apologise. I showed these slides back in January before we had lockdown at an event held by Walthamstow, and it was about Walthamstow, what a fantastic place it was on a number of levels, and that everything was here on your doorstep. And I realised post-COVID I'm using the same slides because here we are with a walkable and cyclable city that has a high road, that has everything you need locally. It also has the art and culture locally. It also has housing for all ages. I'm very passionate at PT about housing for older residents in the city, not some ghetto outside in suburbia. And these are our very happy residents at Colby Lodge in Walthamstow. And in their talking about connections, and Lorna was talking about a connected neighbourhood, this common space here is used by the local community that come into the space in the older people's housing and use it. And in fact, my husband works with a charity that teaches people how to cook cheaply, and they use this space as well, and the older residents join in, and it's the highlight of their week. We've talked about green spaces. Walthamstow is awash with green spaces, and I think people do not need to leave the city to have green spaces. You can see here, and you're making the most of them and developing them, and thank you for that personally. And then finally, just the last thing to think about is, of course, we've completely changed our work habits, and I don't see that changing going forward. I mean, I do see that changing going forward. I'm seeing it being more like it is now. I think so many people are maybe wanting to go into the office for a few days a week, but not 5 days a week. And so many people will want to work from home, but not necessarily in an awkward bedroom, maybe in a bookable workspace, literally at the bottom of their block of flats. So I think we need to think about industry and home. We also need to think about bookable workspace and home. And I think Walthamstow is another great place where we are working to integrate work of all sorts, quite gritty and non-gritty, with home. Okay, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. That was really great. Walthamstow Marsh is a little bit muddy yesterday when I went down there, but we'll let the council off that one. So a couple of questions have come in already. Do try and get some more in. We've got 6 more minutes to take questions. I'll merge 2 of them together. Someone asked what the actions are going forward in terms of the 20-minute city, and then there was another question about the role that technology plays in supporting the evolution of town centres and public spaces. So I don't know who wants to take that question or both of those questions together. Is that one for you, Ian?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. If I start off, so I think in terms of the 20-minute neighbourhood or 15-minute city, I think it's largely about adaptation from a business point of view. So the councils started quite an ambitious programme of business support during COVID as part of our reopening phase. So that involves a lot of assistance to businesses, helping them to trade in different ways. So for example, we've had a hugely successful click and collect scheme with a lot of our high street businesses to encourage footfall onto the high street. We've had a zero emissions delivery service throughout the whole of COVID, which has really taken off. And it's also about trying to look at how those businesses can perhaps access supply chains in a different way and also link with each other. So we've had some fantastic examples of that on businesses in places like Black Horse Lane and Leabridge, where potentially businesses that have suffered more with the hospitality industry have actually managed to access some of those delivery routes and actually still being able to reach their customers through homes. In terms of the 15-minute city principles more widely, our Enjoy Waltham Forest scheme has been a key part of that. So in terms of our cycle and walking networks throughout the entire borough, which is set to expand still further, that's a key part of what we're trying to do, and also links to some of those principles around workspaces. And a lot of our footfall indicators in our high streets and town centres has seen some of the opportunities that have been brought by COVID. So whereas pre-COVID, places like Leytonstone and Walthamstow Central had peaks as people were going to and from the station at the start and end of the day, we've seen much more stable footfall throughout the entire day as Waltham Forest has had a much larger daytime population. So it's that opportunity that we're trying to make the most of and actually capture as part of our 20-minute city model.
Okay, thank you, Ian. I've got another question here from Duncan about the role that recent planning changes will make for you guys, and how they'll affect plans of working with the market and the private sector to deliver things. The other thing that I'd like to add on to the end of that question is what your expectations are of developers, investors, as they come into what is clearly a very investable borough.
So shall I start with that one?
Yeah.
So I think we're working through what potential changes in the planning white paper are going to mean. Keep in mind that they are several years off in any sort of form, and that form could change. Our view is that the best starting place is to have a really strong, robust and easy to understand local plan, and that is what we are going hell for leather to achieve. And we think that will form a robust basis for us to take forward development across the piece. I think with the changes to guidance that we saw earlier in the summer, particularly around Class E usage, there is a real potential for there to be haphazard, unhelpful development on our high streets. So having a good relationship with investors, having a good relationship with developers and property owners is going to be key to managing that. But also those same changes to Class E use cases will also enable our town centres to adapt. So we're not in a position where we're going to condemn them outright or say these are a real concern. There are anxieties with them, but we'll manage those anxieties by having a really robust set of local planning policies. Just to touch on what Ian said, this is all about how we reconfigure our town centres to enable people who previously spent their money in central London to spend their money in Waltham Forest, and at the same time enable and help those businesses who have been particularly hard hit by COVID to respond to it.
I think you're on mute, Chris.
I beg your pardon. Further question from Lorraine, who enjoyed the presentation very much. She just said, she just asked about further support for the diverse communities in the borough and what part specifically that community centres and community hubs can play in the evolution of great places.
So I think the role of community and community centres is absolutely critical. When we talk about a cultural heart, that also very much means a community heart. We see investment and development as an opportunity to re-provide quality community centres and community hubs. Joe, in his presentation, referenced what we're seeking to do in North Chingford on the library site there. That is all about creating a fit-for-purpose community estate. One of the things that I've been very keen to achieve over the last few years is a fit-for-purpose voluntary community estate that will be sustainable over the future and not built around drafty church halls, drafty community centres built 50 years ago, which are no longer fit for purpose, and that can be used in a modern, flexible way that suits our residents' need for the 21st century. Now, we can achieve some of that through the rationalisation and change to our existing estate, but the rest of it will have to be brought forward through development, and we're absolutely clear that these new community centres will be at the heart of new development, as they will be on our Lee Bridge station sites, for instance.
Okay, excellent. Now I'm afraid that is bringing us towards the end. I've been told to sum up very briefly. All I would say in summing up is as a local resident, I'm very reassured. You know, I enjoy culture, I enjoy green space. I have to work in the borough and I use my local high street. So it's fantastic for me to hear all of these things. We've covered so much information. I really thank the panelists for sticking to the time that we had available to us. And now I'm going to hand back to Ross, who's going to bring the session to a close. Ross.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks very much to all the speakers. That was really interesting. You are the most pro-development borough in London. That's how you started up. There's certainly an awful lot of opportunity on show. So I'd encourage those in the audience who want to find out about it to get in touch. Thank you. That's the end of this Real Estate Live event. There's lots more going on. If you like culture, we've had some of that in this session. There's immediately following this one, there is a session on Liverpool, former European City of Culture. If you like Waltham Forest and you like the Upper Lee Valley, there is a session tomorrow on the Productive Valley at 11 o'clock. So lots to choose from. Go and have another look at the website. Join in the free events. Thank you very much, everybody. Our speakers, the audience, thanks very much, and goodbye.